Tonight, jihad at the UK Parliament. I tell you why London's mayor is right, and Tommy Robinson explains where the West went wrong. I'm Faith Goldy, and you're watching On the Hunt. The religion of peace strikes again, this time knifing Britain in its heart. Confession? I'm really sick and tired of giving the same damn rant after every single damn terrorist attack. I'm tired of criticizing the painfully routine reaction to Islam's holy war now playing out across Europe. I'm over talking about how the West is more afraid of Islamophobia than Islamic terrorism. And honestly, I refuse to let any more Facebook filters and not all Muslims hashtags just bother me anymore. I'm done with that. And honestly, I don't really feel like making obvious points anymore. Like, hey, maybe all officers should carry guns. And hey, by the way, political correctness is cancer. Because I'm pretty sure that everyone who watches my videos actually already knows this stuff. So from now on, I'm just gonna tune out the hijabi women on TV who blame terrorism on Western foreign policy and make calls for an end to white male oppression in countries that are going bloody well broke thanks to welfare refugees and Muslims in need of constant monitoring while they plan out the next attack. Why, you ask? No, I haven't suddenly become defeatist. I'm just being a realist.
I do actually think that the moment has come for us to actually point the blame. You know, what these politicians have done in the space of just 15 years may well affect the way we live in this country for the next 100 years.
It's finally dawned on me. London's mayor was right. 6 months ago, London's Muslim mayor Sadiq Khan said terror attacks are part and parcel of living in a big city. Now, at first, I rebuked him based on philosophical grounds. I just thought that Khan was being sort of apathetic. But now I get it. Khan's statement isn't based on emotion. It's based on math. It's a numbers and Islam thing. You see, when Khan says big cities, he means cities with a big Muslim population. Not like, say, Tokyo, home to over 13 million people and no terror attacks. You see, Tokyo's Muslim population is so small, the Japanese government doesn't even bother keeping stats on them. Experts, though, say it's a fraction of 1%. Diversity isn't really Japan's strength. But somewhere like London, where diversity is their strength, well, terror attacks are much more common. And if the current trends continue, it's only going to get worse. Because, again, it's a numbers and Islam thing. In London, there are 8 million people, smaller than Tokyo, and they got a lot of Muslims there. It's a critical mass, actually, at 12.4% of London's population that are Muslims. So, yeah, mathematically, terror attacks are now part and parcel of living in London. Let me explain. If given free rein, Islam progressively takes over countries. It's not conspiracy or Islamophobia. It's just sociological fact. If you haven't already read Slavery, Terrorism, and Islam, it's a great book by Dr. Peter Hammond in which he documents the way in which Muslims slowly develop a presence in various countries from across the world. I suggest you pick up that book, but if you don't, here's the gist. As their population numbers build, a sect of the Muslim population becomes more and more aggressive and assertive about exercising Sharia law. Now, Hammond argues that open, free, and democratic societies are particularly vulnerable to Islamization, that is, a Muslim takeover of a country, which begins when the population of Muslims reaches a critical numerical mass, and they begin to agitate for various privileges. Now, to quote Dr. Hammond, when politically correct, tolerant, and culturally diverse societies agree to Muslim demands for their religious privileges, yeah, some of the other components, they tend to creep in as well. Sound familiar? Now, according to Dr. Hammond, this is how it works. When the Muslim population remains under 2% in a country, they will be seen primarily as a peace-loving minority and not as a threat to other citizens. That's like right here in Canada. But as the Muslim population reaches about 2 to 5%, they begin to recruit from ethnic minorities and disaffected groups within prisons and street gangs. Now, from 5% on, Dr. Hammond observes that Muslims exercise an inordinate political influence in proportion to their percentage of the population. For example, they'll push for the introduction of halal food or anti-Islamophobia legislation, along with threats for a failure to comply. Now, soon, Dr. Hammond argues, they begin to apply pressure to allow Sharia law within their own communities. And all of a sudden, yeah, European Muslim no-go zones, well, they start to make a lot more sense. Now, I'll spare you what happens from 20, 40, 60, or 80% and onwards. Let's just say it's not exactly a happy ending to that story. Look no further than Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, Syria, Turkey, or the UAE. However, I want to focus on that critical mass that I mentioned earlier and how it relates to London. So for Hammond, that critical mass is tipped when Muslims reach 10% of a given population. Now, according to Dr. Hammond, when Muslims approach 10% of the population, they tend to increase lawlessness as a means of complaint about their conditions. Now, in Paris, where, by the way, the population is 10 to 15%, we are already seeing car burnings. Any non-Muslim action offends Islam and results in uprisings as threats, such as in Amsterdam, with opposition to Muhammad cartoons and films about Islam. Now, for the record, other European cities in which the Muslim population has tipped 10% include Brussels, Birmingham, Cologne, Malmo, Rotterdam, and Stockholm. Now, you'll notice that every one of the cities that I just mentioned is, experiencing Hammond's predictions in live time. They've all tipped the 10% threshold, and each one of those cities in Europe, well, it's perpetually in the news for Muslim lawlessness, be it car burnings, riots, mass sex attacks, and yes, terrorist attacks too. Now, you might be asking yourself, why? Why does this political and cultural shift happen with Muslims alone and not, say, with Christians or Jews when their religious groups peak 10% in a given population? And frankly, there's really no way to sugarcoat this. Islam is different. Islam is not a religion of peace. It is a complete system of life with legal, political, economic, social, and military components baked into the Muslim holy book. And the values of that system of life are fundamentally incompatible with the values of liberal democratic society. For Pete's sakes, there are 109 verses in the Quran that call Muslims to war with the unbeliever for the sake of Islamic, not democratic, rule. Now, the story of Muslim aggression, what is at its heart a holy war, has been playing out for some 1,400 years because, a newsflash, Islam is not a religion of peace. Again, that's not a phobia, that's not conspiracy, that's just historical, geographical, and sociological fact confirmed by over a millennium of murders, rapes, burnings, and forced conversions, all at the hands of Islam. But, well, the West, we seem hell-bent on importing this conquering culture. And so, as more cities see their Muslim populations climb above that 10% threshold, the sad fact of the matter is London's Mayor Sadiq Khan, he's going to be proved right again and again. Terrorism is just a part and parcel of European urban life now. You know, it took 2/3 of the Christian world to be conquered by Islam before the First Crusade was called. London has fallen. Now it's just a question of who's next. Don't go anywhere. Tommy Robinson after this very short break. My name's Faith Goldy, and I am a proud member of the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. The CSSA protects our precious rights and freedoms as law-abiding firearms owners. As a proud gun owner and shooter, that is my goal too, because frankly, we don't have enough freedom in this country. Join the CSSA today. To defend and expand our rights, we must have a strong, powerful voice in Ottawa. The CSSA has proven beyond doubt to be that voice. Go to www.cssa-cila.org and become a member today. Help make our team even stronger. Together, we can help bring positive change to Canada's gun laws.
They've been beheading people, they've been raping people, and they're walking the streets of our capital city. They're living with us. Our government have failed us. Don't come out and act all strong on this, Home Secretary, Theresa May, because you haven't been strong. You've been weak, you've showed cowardice, okay?
You're very quick to label this as a foreign terrorist.
Because my head is not up my arse. Yeah? My head is not up my arse. This is an Islamic jihad attack.
That was the rebels, Tommy Robinson and Kaylin Robertson, on the ground in London right after the terrorist attack happened. Some people see him as public enemy #1, others a pariah, and others an absolute patriot. I'm lucky to call him my friend and my colleague, Tommy Robinson. He joins us now. He's in a shed somewhere in the UK. We assure you that that giant pixel on your screen is in fact Tommy. Thanks for being with us, bud.
How you doing? Thanks.
Look, we laugh a little bit, but times couldn't be more serious where you are. As I understand it, you and Kaylin were getting together, you're making some videos, and then news comes through that your capital has been attacked. Walk us through what happened and what was the scene on the ground.
So news come through. We were literally just around the corner. So news come through. We heard of gunshots, and we went to see what was going on. I went for multiple reasons. I went because obviously, I've dedicated the last 10 years of my life to talking and highlighting the problems around this. I don't believe or trust the mainstream media. We had an attack just last year where a Somalian stabbed 7 people in Russell Square in London, and he was shouting Allah Akbar. It was never declared as terrorism. We had another attack at Leytonstone train station, never declared as terrorism. So when I first heard the first incident, I'll go see myself. I'll go see what's going on. And we got there. We was literally minutes away. So we got there as all the police were arriving. And I see young girls with blankets on them in shock. It was a horrific scene on arriving.
I'm curious to know what the bystanders and other pedestrians were like. I've covered several terrorist attacks on both sides of the 49, and what I was surprised by, and it was similar sentiments echoed by folks like Gavin McInnes and Ezra Levant when they went to Paris, it was just this sort of malaise, this sort of cognitive dissonance where people, it was like as though nothing had happened. It's like they had become desensitized. Did you notice the same thing, or were people worked up just moments after the attack?
Exactly the same. I was just messaging Kaylin about it this morning to say people have just accepted it. That's how it was. It was like an acceptance. Oh, right. It wasn't terrorist attack.
No.
I checked that, and I believe that is in London. If that incident, because you saw that I was angry, I was really upset. I think if that incident was happening in different working class city centres, I think there'd be a different reaction. It felt just accepted. That's what it felt.
Of course, you know, this is a developing news story, and the situation is still fluid even hours after the fact. By the time that we're taping this right now, ISIS has claimed responsibility. They say that this guy was our soldier. And I've followed the different terrorist attacks, and I know that ISIS differentiates. They say that this guy was inspired by us. In other words, he might have made some, you know, Facebook posts saying, I'm just doing what ISIS told me to do. But they said soldier, and soldier usually means that there's some sort of connection. They've been in contact with one another. Are you expecting to hear something from MI5 or from the UK Parliament? I mean, for me, from across the pond, they got some explaining to do.
Well, when yesterday, as soon as I started talking about this at the scene, one of the journalists, which you've seen the video of, said, how am I linking it to a foreign terrorist group?
Right.
And I said instantly, because it's going to be. And I said there and then, I said, this is going to be a Muslim radicalised on the streets of the UK who was already known to our security services, who they'd let do it. Because really they've let it happen. And the breaking news today is MI5 and security services knew who he was. He come to their attention for violent extremism, links to violent extremism years ago. And when we talk about ISIS, we had 4 times as many British Muslims joined ISIS to fight for ISIS than joined the British military. That's up to 2,000. That's up to 2,000. So we've had approximately 500 have been welcomed back. They've come back. All the Muslim moderate organisations say we need to reintegrate them. All the politicians say we need to reintegrate them. So we've been waiting for this anyway. The country's been embracing itself for this anyway. But we've got 500 trained jihadi soldiers walking our streets. I don't think this man's going to have been one of them that's already gone. But we've also stopped thousands from going. We've detained their passports and we're holding them here. Just waiting and watching them, waiting for them to do something like this. So when you say do the security services have a lot to answer for, I think when we accept we're at a war, these people are foreign combatants, enemy combatants, of a foreign ideology and enemy. We need to start treating them as such.
But I don't know how much worse.
Waiting for them to kill.
Tommy, I don't know how much worse it needs to get. There was, you know, I'm speaking from a country where we had an attack as well from an ISIS-inspired soldier on our House of Parliament, on our Parliament Hill. Your Houses of Parliament have been attacked as well. Are we going to see a change in political discourse there? Or are folks going to continue to be more afraid of Islamophobia than Islamic extremism, fundamentalism?
In some insane way, it seems the more attacks they do, the more power Islam gets. The more the Islamic community become a victim or become viewed as a victim, the more people and the liberals will defend them. The more attacks that happen. It's insanity. That's what we're seeing. So is this going to change the discourse? Unfortunately not. Lee Rigby being beheaded didn't change it. This isn't going to. When Lee Rigby was beheaded 4 years ago, David Cameron come out and set up a government task force to combat the extremism. Yeah? Now, I said at that time, in 5 years' time, we're going to be sitting in a far worse opposition than we are now. Your task force is pointless because you're not addressing the issue. You're not even naming the issue. So you're not going to solve it. And 4 years on, look where we are. We are now 12 terror plots planned last year. Terrorism offences in the UK are going up 60%. 2,000 men have gone to fight for ISIS. We're in a lot worse position than we was. Their task force and their conditions that they wish to implement, they're doing with their hands tied behind their back by political correctness. Until they get their gloves off and start really tackling what the problem is, which is Islam and the influence it has on our society, we're never going to solve this. And unfortunately, I think tens of thousands will have to be killed before our country's in a position that they wish it to do that.
That's most depressing. And frankly, I just ranted about the fact that this is the new reality. There has been an absolute unwillingness to change when it comes from the political upper echelon. There's been an absolute cone of censorship, self-censorship that the media has imposed on itself. I think that popular culture is such that it's still the undertones, the underbellies of society that's willing to call out the problem for what it is, and that is fundamentalist Islam. How do you've been fighting this for 10 years. How do you remain energized when you see us continuing to just slide rapidly down this slope of Islamization of the West?
I go home and look at my kids. I go home and look at my kids. And I know that we haven't really got an option because we have a duty for them. We have a duty for the next generation. I don't want to confuse that the general public, forget the liberal elite of London. The general public understand what's happening. The general public are fed up. You see that by the political thing with Brexit. You see it with Donald Trump. You're seeing it in Europe. You've seen, I believe, just a matter of hours ago, a car tried to do exactly the same as what happened in London yesterday in Belgium. We've seen the Nice attacks. I don't think we're going to see any real change come to Europe until we see either a Marie Le Pen or a Geert Wilders elected. When that happens, I think that will be a defining moment for Europe's history. But that's what we're going to have to get to. So, unfortunately, I see that in 4 years' time. I know I'm playing off. I think a hell of a lot more terrorism, a hell of a lot more murder, a hell of a lot more jihad over the next 4 years. But in 4 years' time, Holland will be in a position where they will vote for Geert Wilders. France will be in a position where they will vote for Marine Le Pen.
And maybe the UK will be in a position to... And maybe the UK will be in a position to vote for Tommy Robinson, but I'd knock on doors for you, just so you know. Tommy, you're a great father. You're an inspiration, and we're lucky to have you as part of the team here. But thanks so very much for your service. Keep punching, and keep your eyes on Europe, because God knows you're one of the most important vigilant forces on the ground there. Thanks so much, Tommy.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, stay with us, folks. We're going to close the show after this very short break. All right, before we let you go, instead of having a quote of honor this week, I decided we'd have a quote of dishonor. This one comes from the Quran. I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve. Therefore, strike off their heads and strike off every fingertip of them. You know, you hear a lot of the time that the jihad inside the Quran is about a spiritual war. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that no reasonable person would interpret that passage to be a spiritual struggle. Folks, it's not a religion of peace. Terrorism is a part of Islam's holiest text. It's time the West wakes up. Thanks so much for joining us this week. We hope to see you again next Thursday. In the meantime, God bless. And remember, we got your six.